start there, right? We are in the Power series, and as we are in the Power series, um, we are dealing with or looking at right now the power of your faith, the power of your belief system. All right, your belief system. Some people say, well, I don't, people feel or think differently, and some people have an issue with using the word faith. I don't know why, but you don't want to because you relate that to God and Christ. Well, let me tell you, that's the best way and the only way to get where you want to go and to get what you're trying to get is to have faith in God, right? Have faith in God. I got shared with you all earlier. It's not going to work any other way. It just won't. It won't. You can have the positive thinking all you want. You can have all the other stuff that you want to have or feel like you need to have. But if you don't have faith in God, then all of this that I'm talking about, all of this that we're dealing with, it is for nothing. You know, because if your mind's not made up, I'm telling you that there is something about a made up or determined mind. And I know people will point out and say, well, this person don't believe in God, but yet they still believed that they would do this. But listen, here's the thing that I recognize and I realize: my Father, my God, my Lord, my shepherd and my king, right? He tells me about how, don't worry about the wicked and the things that they have and what they're doing, right? Because he said the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous, right? He goes through so many different things. And here's I'm telling you, I could go through so many different ways and examples where it has been proven in life that the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous or laid up for the just. I mean, even when you look at, you see so many different wealthy, rich folks who what they do is they have their different projects or places where they give away their money, right? Meaning, this is their charitable donations, right? And you never know how some of those, you don't see maybe directly some of the benefits, but how some of the things that they pour their money into benefit other folks in other countries who are poorer, or even people over here who are a little bit poorer, whatever the case may be. And I'm telling you, don't worry about the wicked and their wealth and their riches, because God has something greater in store. And you just have to, and that's why I would rather have the faith and believe and know that God can and God will do all the things that He promised and said that He would do. Because, see, here's what I recognize and I realize is that I'm not just storing up riches for right here in heaven. I'm storing up riches right here on earth rather, but I'm storing up riches and wealth for when I make it into heaven. I'm storing up, he says, listen, don't worry about what moth and rusts and rust rather and all that can destroy, but store up some stuff in heaven, where the moth can't touch, where man can't steal, where man can't snake and connive and take what's rightfully yours. No, no. Store up your treasure in heaven. And friends, I would rather store it up in heaven. I'd rather get it and have it in heaven than to be working and doing all this stuff on this side, not to be able to, enjoy it or take it with me. And so I'm talking about the power of a secured faith, a secured faith. I've shared with you all before. This is part 14. Let me say this first. This is part 14 of the Power series. We're going to do this for 21. There's 21 parts to this. Generally, it would have been 21 days, but since I'm only on for certain days and at certain times, we're going to do it as a part, right? As parts. So this is part 14. Part 14. So with that having been said, with that being the case, this is part number 14 of the 21 parts of the Power series, right? So, or you could still say day 14. But I have shared with you all before that Well, let me go back to Hebrews. Hebrews tells us that without faith, it is impossible to please God. Hebrews says, without faith, it is impossible to please God. For he who comes to him must first believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Right? So if you're going to come to him, then you must first believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him, right? That's what it tells us in Hebrews. And I shared with you all on yesterday. Yes, it was on yesterday. No, I'm sorry. Yesterday was Wednesday, so it was on Monday. I shared with you all. Yesterday was Tuesday, I mean. But I shared with you all on yesterday. I mean, on Monday, that when he tells us, and in even in James, and this is where we kind of left off in James, he told us, he said that, if any man lacks anything, let him ask of God, who giveth liberally and upbraideth not. But let that man ask in faith, not wavering or doubting, and let not that man think that he should receive anything from the Lord. For the man who wavers and doubts is like the man who is tossed and driven by the sea. He is a double-minded man and unstable in all his ways. Now, most of the time when we preach that, we preach that from the standpoint and from the place of, all right, you've got to just have complete faith. You can't have, moments where you teeter or totter or, but I took you also to Mark chapter number 9. Mark chapter number 9. And I hope you're writing these down and you're looking at them and studying them for yourself. I'm not telling you that the word of God contradicts itself, because I'm absolutely sure that it does not. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it does not. But I believe that what has happened is that we have been teaching the word of God possibly improperly. We've been teaching it wrong. And so what I am saying to you is, when he says to you in James that you must have faith, not wavering or doubting, what I understand him to be saying is that you have to have at least that mustard seed of faith. You've got to have at least that portion of faith, that of belief in you, that says, what God has for me, it is for me, it is mine. I believe that God is able. Now, does that then mean that you won't have moments of weakness, that you won't then have moments of where you still believe, but yet it's some stuff that's going on and happening that causes you to kind of waver, that causes you to kind of, teeter-totter a little bit? Is that what that means? No, that's not what that means. Let me show you why I say that. If you go then to Mark chapter number 9, I read this for you the other day on Monday, and I'm just reiterating some things right now. But when you go to Mark chapter 9, Jesus is talking with the man whose son has been, who is demon possessed, and he's got all these different things going. And he asked him, how long has he been like this? And he tells him, since childhood. And the demons, they often will cause him to fall into the fire. They'll cause him to fall into the water. And they're trying to kill him, right? And he convulses and all these other things. And Jesus said, okay. And the man said, listen, if you can do anything, have compassion upon us. And Jesus said to him, all things are possible for him who believes. All things are possible to him who believes. Now, when we look at that, we say, okay, all things are possible to him who believes. And if we took James chapter 1, then we would think that it means that you have to just have complete faith. You can't have a momentary lapse of weakness. You've got to just. But I love the man's response, and I love what Jesus did in response to his response. The man said, Master, I believe, but help thou my unbelief. I first off, let me say, I respect this man for his honesty. I respect this man for his transparency. I respect him for being willing, in the face of somebody who holds or who could change his entire world, I respect him for saying, I really do believe. I really do have faith. But I'll be honest, your disciples was here and they act like they couldn't do. I mean, it's not like they act like they just didn't have the power to do anything. And right now, I'm just not too sure. I believe. And honestly, if it wasn't for the part of me that believes, I wouldn't even be talking to you. But there's an inkling, there's a piece of me, there's a small part of me that still believes that you're able. There's a part of me that still believes that you can do it. And honestly, that's the only thing that's keeping me from walking away right now. Because your disciples, I mean, they're a disappointment to me. I'm just imagining, putting myself in that man's mindset. Here it is. He's brought his son to Jesus. He came to Jesus and his disciples just with all kinds of faith, just knowing that God is able, right? Think about it. He wouldn't have come to them if he didn't have some sort of faith and if he wasn't desperate. And I'm gonna talk about the power in your desperation. That's the next step in this, right? Because see, sometimes you have the made up mind, you have the God-given vision, and there's power in all of those things, right? And you have all of those, and then you've got the like I said, the determined mindset, and you've been speaking the word, and you've been speaking what God says, and you've got the faith to back it up. And sometimes it is your determination along with all of that. Not only determination, and I'm going to deal with the two together, determination and desperation. It is the two of those coupled together that then propels you, all right, and gets God's attention. But so I'm going to deal with those as I close, and on tomorrow we'll pick up and go a little further with those. But let me deal with this right here. So the man, right? It's his faith that's keeping him there. Because the disciples, Jesus had just been up on the mount. If you read all of chapter 9, starting at the very beginning, Jesus had just been up on the mount, had the transfiguration experience, where he was transfigured, and he had the conversation with the Lord and then the prophets and all that, and he had just had this wonderful experience while he was up on the mount. And his disciples then are down a little further down the mountain, and he encounters them as they are trying to cast a demon out of a boy, and the demon ain't paying them no attention. None. The boy just is just the same as he was. And isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing that Jesus has a way of showing up right at the right place, at the right time, right when you need him? God has a way of showing up for you right at the right place, at the right time, right when you need him. I mean, maybe the lights done got cut off. They done about to cut off the gas has got cut off, and they about to do, you're about to get evicted, and then he just shows up. And in some cases, you even get evicted, and then you in the car, and they trying to find you in that car because they want to repossess the car too, and God just shows up, and somebody just blesses you, and I mean, just, and just like that, this is how Jesus shows up when this man who's been with Jesus's disciples, who weren't able to do a thing. I mean, a thing. Now, mind you, Jesus had just sent them out, given them power, and told them, hey, go forth and do all this. And they went out 2 by 2, and they came back with great reports of how they could cast out demons, and demons were even subject to them under his name and all this. And he was like, look, don't rejoice in that. Rejoice in the fact that your name is written in the Lamb's book of life, right? All right, so all of that had happened prior to this. So now the disciples aren't able to do it. Now they don't have that power no more. Now it's like, okay, we used to could do this. They used to fear us, right? Or at least respond to his name when we said it. But what happened? But that's for a different day. I'm gonna deal with that on a different day when we're out of the power series. I'm gonna come back to that. Y'all remind me if y'all have to remind me to go back to that, right? Because there is something that happened, and I really want to deal with that and talk about that on a different day on a different subject. But going back to it now, this man, Jesus is coming down right when this man is starting to feel hopeless, and Jesus says to him, all things are possible to him who believes. When you've got a secured faith, when you've got a faith that is secure, nothing is impossible for you. Nothing is impossible to you. And even if you just, you have that faith, but you got, your moments of just like, man, I've been dealing with this for too long, and I done went to too many different people and too many different pastors and prophets and all of this, and I've been in too many revivals and settings, and ain't nobody ever called out my name, ain't nobody ever spoke to me. But I'm telling you, when you have just that faith, a secured faith, I'm making my way to a close, right? Jesus said again, all things are possible to him who just believes. And the man said, I believe, but help thou my unbelief. I believe that but everything in life has shown me that ever since this boy has been little, everything has shown me that it just may not be possible. I want to switch from that and let us look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or more appropriately, Ananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, Azariah. Yeah, the three Hebrew boys, right? That's their Hebrew names: Mishael, Ananiah, and Azariah. That's their Hebrew names. Their captive names, their slave names, were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Here it is. The decree has went forth, and the decree says, whenever you hear this, that you need to bow down and do all this, and they refuse to. And the decree says that, well, whenever, if you don't do it, then you'll be tossed into the fiery furnace. Okay, that's fine with us. And the king said, listen, I'm going to give you one more opportunity. I'm going to give you one more time. When you hear the music, go ahead and bow down to me and do it. And they said, listen, king, we ain't gotta answer. We ain't gotta worry about it, because see, we've got a secured faith. Yeah, you can possibly harm the body, but our soul is more important. Our soul is much bigger. Our soul is what's at stake here. And we're not going to worship you. We're not going to bow down to you. No. Because we are going to, we trust in the Lord. When you've got a secured faith, there is nothing that is impossible. Jesus said, Mark chapter 9, all things are possible to him who believes. Then going back to the Hebrew boys, King, we don't have to answer to you because we've got faith in our God. We know that he is able to deliver. We know that he is strong and mighty. We know that, and even if he doesn't deliver, we understand, and when you have a secured faith, all things are possible to him who believes. Throw him into the fiery furnace. It was heated up 7 times. It was heated up so hot that the men who threw them into the fire fell like dead men. So you mean to tell me that the men who threw him in fell like dead men, but then the ones who were thrown in are in the thing walking around? All things are possible to him who believes. If you just have faith, if you can just trust God in the midst of hell, in the midst of turmoil, in the midst of situations and issues and problems and this falling apart on this side and this falling apart on that, if you can just say, Lord, I trust you. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what's going on. I trust you. The power of a secured faith. I mean, the men who threw them in fell like dead men. And then look at the next part of that. It says that eventually, well, it doesn't say eventually, but it does say that shortly then after, it says sometime after that, right? Sometime after that, the king then, they're looking and they look in the fiery furnace, they look in the furnace rather, and they're seeing not just three but four, and the fourth one looks like. And then so the king runs to the entrance, and he now that's a key point right there, and that's why I wanted to go this far. The king goes to the entrance, and notice at this point it's not so hot to where he is falling like a dead man, and he calls for him, and they come on out. So that means they had been in there a while. They had been in this thing for a while. They had been in the furnace, and God kept them. God protected them. God delivered them. God brought them out. It said that when they came out, they didn't have the smell of smoke on them. They didn't have a singed hair on their body. That they were no longer in their restraints. That like they were walking around free. They climbed out. I want you to know and understand the power of a secured faith. And I'm trying to close, but I want to even look at Daniel in the lion's den. A secured faith. Wasn't worried about what nobody else said or did. Don't pray to no other God. Daniel said, I bet. Went up, opened his windows, prayed, because he had a secured faith. Mark chapter 9, all things are possible if you just believe. Mark chapter 9, verse 23. Jesus said to him, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. Jesus said, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. Daniel is thrown into a lion's den, sealed in there. And here's the thing. I love the fact that what they could have done, they could have tied stakes around Daniel's neck and his wrist and they could have put a slab of beef on top of Daniel and then threw him in there. And I just, because of the faith that he had, God said, what I'm going to do, let the lions be your pillow tonight, Daniel. Don't worry about it, brother. I got you. The angels are holding their mouth shut. When you have a secured faith, all things, Mark chapter 9, verse 23, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. So we've looked at the three Hebrew boys. We've looked at Daniel. I could take you a step further and I could show you David. I could take you a step further and I could show you the prophet Elijah, and how he built an altar, right? Had the wood, had everything, had all that, and then dug a trench around it and poured water on it to where the whole altar was drenched. Had water all around the trench and called down fire. And what happened? Fire fell from heaven. It lapped up all the water. And listen, the power of a secured faith. All things are possible to him who believes. Jesus said, again, Mark chapter 9, verse 23. I want you to hold on to this because as we go through the power series, I cannot leave you without letting you know that if you can believe, Jesus said, if you could just believe, all things are possible to him who believes. Friends, let me just encourage you. You've got to have a secured faith. If you don't know nothing else, if you don't believe nothing else, then know and believe that God is able. Know that God is able. Know that God is able. If you've just got the faith enough to believe, know that God is able. All right. I'm going to leave you with this. I'm going to leave you with this. I was just talking with Pastor Honore 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was fired from my job. I was a department manager in a major retail store, right? And I remember it was I'll say the name of it, J.C. Penney, right? I was a department manager in J.C. Penney's. I got fired from my job, no warning, no whatever. I just walked in on a Tuesday. They fired me. No, I'm sorry, it was a Monday, and they fired me. And I went that same day, got a job at Dillard's, you know. And the Lord spoke to me, and many of you, if not all of you, have heard this testimony. The Lord spoke to me, and He showed even my wife in a dream, and He told me not to take the job. That was not the place that He had, fit for me. And He said, "I want you to do ministry, write your book, do radio, do ministry." I went back and I told the folks at Dillard's because I got hired the same day I got fired. I got hired, and they said, "Listen, we're gonna do all this." And I went and told them, I can't work for y'all. I can't take this position. I'm going to do ministry." They laughed, and every time they'd see me, because my wife got a job there at the same time, and so every time they'd see me, "Oh, how's the ministry going?" "Oh, going good," you know. And I started doing radio. I started working for the Lord. And I'm telling you, God has provided. All things are possible to him who believes. It's been 10 years and yeah, I'm here at the radio station, but I am here because God has me here. Not because I have to be here, not because, but this is where God has me, and God has provided for me here. And when God calls me and tells me to go and do something else or go somewhere, I will go because I trust God more than I trust man, more than I trust money. I trust God. That's the power. And let me tell you, God has provided wonderfully for me. That's why I played that song by Zacardi Cortez, "You've Been Good to Me," before our word of encouragement, is because God has provided wonderfully for me. But it started with me trusting him. It started with me saying, "Okay, you said don't take this job. You said to walk away from it and to just do ministry. All right. And I want you to know ministry has provided, and God will always provide for you. There is no lack in the kingdom of God. All things are possible to him who believes." Hold on to that. Keep the faith and don't let go. All right. All right, friends. Let's go ahead and do this. We're gonna go ahead and take a quick commercial break. After this commercial break, I'm gonna come back with Charles Jenkins with "Keep the Faith." You're tuned in to I Am Encouraged Radio here on your community minded station, 93.5 KPPM.